Welcome to Comfort
Will you cue me in,
Three,
please?
2, 1. Welcome to Comfort and Growth.
And where am I looking?
At your beautiful face.
Oh, I look at myself.
You always love to look at your beautiful face, right? Then. Welcome to Comfort and Growth, the podcast for people who are passionate about personal growth and productivity. And today I have Dr. Greg with me in the house again.
Hello, everybody. Delighted to be here. Thanks for having me, Crystal.
And today's special episode is dedicated to one of our followers from our community who asked for a special episode on how to get out of a rut when life knocks you down, when you've experienced challenges. So let me take a moment to read out what she wrote to us. And this message, by the way, received so many replies on my IG. I literally had hundreds of women and men as well writing to me, wanting to offer her messages of solace and comfort and tell her she's not alone. So let's hear what she had to say. Hi, Crystal. Thanks for being so generous in your sharing. I am in my mid-30s, feeling like a failure after a long-term relationship breakup. I lost my identity and life direction. Seeing how my peers are slaying in their career, having financial stability, building a family, I couldn't help but feel so inadequate. Going for psychotherapy, seeking self-growth, and going inwards takes a lot mentally and financially. And at many points, it's so much easier to give up, especially on days I really struggle. At this age, with no savings and feeling lost and pessimistic, I struggle to muster the strength to begin my days. But on days where I can find the tiniest bit of positivity, I give thanks to come across your generous sharing. I'm still seeking to understand the true meaning of this season of mind. Keep inspiring us. So Greg, you must hear many of these similar stories with people coming to you, feeling stuck, feeling hopeless. What do you say to them?
Yeah, first step is really to acknowledge that you're not alone. We all, at some point in our lives, experience setbacks, breakups, heartbreak, loneliness, confusion, and feeling stuck some way or another. So just recognizing this is part of life. But there are ways of dealing with it, and we're going to explore that in this podcast.
Well, one thing that I can say is that I'm somewhat of an expert on this.
Oh, you are?
Yes, I have been retrenched. I've experienced betrayal many times. I have experienced a divorce. I have experienced all kinds of career setbacks, a business that didn't do very well, struggling with postnatal depression. I could go on and on, miscarriage, so forth. And with every one of these, I find that, I get better and better at picking myself up and getting out of that rut. So in order for you to get through hard things, you essentially need a lot of resilience. And resilience has 5 different forms. There is mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, and social resilience. And each of these are really, really important. So in today's podcast, we are going to be giving you some of our best tips for how you can, in each of these 5, what we like to call gardens of resilience, really find the best practices that are going to help you. And for some people, some of these gardens work better than others. Some people neglect certain gardens. For example, I might be very much I might be very connected to my physical resilience. Maybe I take care of my body. Maybe I go exercise a lot and I nourish myself, but maybe I'm not so much in tune with how I can shore up my emotional resilience reserves.
Yeah, so really important to have different techniques across each of these gardens to maximize your resilience.
We always say that we start with the body. When you are getting through a hard time, it is very important to take care of your physicality.
Absolutely. I always suggest it's really important to begin with getting a good night's sleep. When you get enough sleep, it helps you to process what's been going on in your life. It helps you feel rested the next day and give you the energy to attend to the other gardens as well.
So I remember when I was going through a divorce and I felt really, really sad. Sometimes in those early days, I was crying all day. So I remember a good friend said to me, you can cry and wallow all day if you want, but you must do these 2 things. At the end of the day, you must have at least one good dinner and you must have a good night's sleep. Regardless of what time that you sleep, you need to wake up at the same time. And I know this sounds very hard at the moment. I really struggled with this, but through experience, I found out that if I just let myself wake up at any old time, one day 11 o'clock, next day 12:30, next day 9 o'clock, it really doesn't do your system any good. You really need to set a time and say every day consistently, no matter how little or how much I've slept the night before, I'm going to wake up and reset at the same time. Even if I've only just gotten 1 or 2 hours of sleep, I'm going to wake up at the same time. And after a while, your body will naturally reset itself.
Yeah, I also recommend that there should be an evening routine. Maybe it's having a nice long shower or hot bath, listening to some relaxing music perhaps, or doing some gentle stretching or mindfulness perhaps. All of that helps you unwind as you're preparing to go to sleep. We don't recommend that you are lying in bed endlessly scrolling through Instagram or any other things that may remind you of the difficulties that you're experiencing, because they will just lead to further stress response and activate your brain.
It's almost like you need to be your own parent. It's like reparenting, sometimes that little voice in your head says, oh yeah, heck cares. Let's just scroll through social media and go to my ex-boyfriend's posts and look at all of them. And then you need to kind of pull yourself out of that and go to like your inner wisdom, zoom out and listen to your higher self and think, is this really in my best interest? So it's almost like you're being your own best parent. I want to also highlight some reader suggestions. A few of our readers, or I should say followers from our community have suggested vitamin D. So I have Anis here who says a morning walk. The sunshine gives hope that it will be a better day. Jolyn says, when I was depressed, I just pull myself out of bed and sit in the sun. So vitamin D is very important. A lot of people actually are deficient in vitamin D, but I think that that's a super recommendation. Other readers also say going into nature is what makes them feel better. So Spitz says, take long walks in nature, retreat to the forest, the mountains, the ocean. And that reminds me of a quote by a famous writer, Anais Nin, and she said, the cure, I'm paraphrasing, by the way. So from what I remember, she said something along the lines of, the cure for everything is salt water. It's either tears, sweat, or the sea. Portia says, break the routine. Find an adventure because our world is so much bigger than our confines.
Yeah, I love this. So certainly getting out of bed in the morning and starting with some gentle movement, whether it's going for a walk or gentle yoga or simply stretching your body a little bit, will also help you shift perhaps off the overthinking that you might begin your day with, anxieties, wondering what's going to happen, into your physicality, and that will help you with the healing process.
Okay, so we've done body. Let's move on to the second facet, which is emotions. And I think it's very important to connect to something that brought you joy or has brought you joy in the past. So for example, it could be a hobby that you love, like cooking. For me, it's playing the piano. I find that, when I'm really in a funk, I kind of force myself to go to the piano because it's something that consistently has been there for me, and I just let it out. I pound it out on the piano. I play sad songs. It's a means of creating and connecting to my emotions. And I think the creative side, especially for women, it's so important. I have this saying that if I'm not creating, I'm destroying. And I think that, when I have all this pent up frustration, I better seek a creative outlet, whether it's writing, whether it's painting, drawing, whether it's making music. So many of us forget to honor that creative side of ourselves. We only did it when we were kids or in school. And then as we grow up as adults, we forget we have all this creativity within us.
We also recommend in the morning to check in with how you are feeling at that moment. This could be done by journaling about your feelings. This could be done with a little morning meditation where you perhaps place your hand on your heart and really check in with the range of emotions that might be there. And can help you also to recognize there may be difficult emotions, there may be disappointment and anger and frustrations, but perhaps there are also more lighter emotions emerging, like hopefulness or curiosity or joy even.
Yeah, I think it's important to be able to name it and tame it. We've spoken about this in previous episodes. The moment we are able to name our emotions with specific granularity and say, oh, I feel there is a heaviness in my gut. And if I could give it a shape, it would be like a spiral. And if I could give it a color, it would be dark blue. And if I could give it a sensation, it would be pulsing. And the more specific you are about how you feel, even if you're just journaling it out in your journal, your diary, it's like being able to name what it is. And research shows us that it's better out than in. When we can actually write about it, when we can actually express it, it's almost as if we pull that emotion out of our body and we look at it. And in that moment, it is not us. We are looking and observing it, but then we have this objectivity about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And great also if you have a loved one or a trusted friend that you can share that with, because if you share your emotions, it shares the burden of carrying them, and hopefully they show you some empathy as well.
Yeah, one other practice in terms of emotions that we find helpful is a self-compassion practice. So it's where you put your hand on your heart and you offer yourself some simple well wishes like, may I have the courage to get through this. May I have the strength to find meaning in this. May I have clarity and so forth. May I be protected by the universe. Whatever words come to your mind, it's actually that simple act of putting your hand on your heart, feeling the warmth of your hand, and offering yourself some well wishes just like you would a best friend. But so many times we forget to be friends to ourselves. So I have a self-compassion meditation that I have on YouTube, and I'm going to leave that in the show notes as well.
Yeah, and this can also help to get in touch with the shared humanity that we all experience difficult emotions from time to time. It's probably perfectly reasonable if you've just had a breakup or you lost your job or something has happened in your life, that we do feel these difficult emotions. They have a purpose, and you're not alone in experiencing them, and you don't have to feel bad for having them.
Absolutely. One of our community says, Vanessa says, take a break and breathe. Allow your body to experience the grief. There is a season for everything. Love that. Let's move on to the third garden. This one is the mental garden. So how do we develop mental resilience? I think that it's important to get your mindset in order. So, move out of the victim mindset and actually express what you want, what your needs are, and you can express that to other people, or you can get really clear on what what needs you'd like to honor for the next phase of your life, and you can make a list of your core values or core needs. So, for example, after I've come out of a very oppressive relationship, I might say that, look, I make a vow to myself that from now on, I'm going to dedicate my life to one of my core values, which is freedom, or it could be empowerment, or it could be growth. Maybe I was in a phase of my life where I felt I wasn't growing, and the next one, I really want to dedicate it to that. You could even try putting that one word like growth or freedom as the wallpaper of your phone so that you look at it all the time. But I think it's so important to find something to aim towards. Another good tip is to have what it is known in social media terms as a main character mindset. So imagine as if you are the main character of a movie, and it helps sometimes to romanticize your life. Imagine that you're in the middle of a movie, you're the main character. What would you do? How would you move on? Or another helpful mind exercise is imagine that you are now 2 years in the future from now. And imagine that you are living your best life ever. Your wildest hopes and dreams have come true. I am now a fashion designer, in Paris, having my first show, or I am now a successful entrepreneur. And imagine that you're being interviewed and the interviewer asks you, hey, how did you get over 2 years ago, that big setback? What is it that this future self, this future successful self would say? So allow yourself to journal on that and have that as a creative exercise.
Yeah, I love that. Also really important to check in whether the inner critic is fully activated. We all have that inner voice that sometimes says, hey, you're an idiot. Why are you still like this? You should work harder or push more. And recognizing when that voice needs to be dialed down, when it's actually not helpful in moving forward.
Of course, if you have the resources, therapy or coaching can be very useful. If you don't have the resources, I would recommend you try something called the GROW model, GROW, to make a plan when you feel ready to move on. So GROW model involves looking at number 1, the G stands for your goals. What is your goal? Number 2, the R stands for reality. So what's the reality at the moment? What is what have you tried before? What worked? What didn't work? What's the gap between your goals and your current situation? The third step, the O stands for options. So this is where you get creative and brainstorm. What options do I have? And W stands for way forward. What are you going to commit to? And this GROW model is a really popular coaching model to help you organize your thoughts and create a plan. So I have some followers who wanted to chime in as well. I have Prospect Music Therapy who says, sign up for a class and keep turning up. Amelia says, I have a daily motivation app on my mobile phone. Abs Back says, try something wildly new that breaks your pattern, because learning can be a powerful palate cleanser. I totally love that. I have a whole list of things that I want to learn, from AI prompt engineering to, how to get better at networking, that sort of thing, how to scale up my business. So learning can sometimes get you out of a funk.
Yeah, also there are many self-help books that may help as well. Whatever it is that you're struggling with, there's a book for it as well.
Angel Killian says, mindset work, visualizing what I want, tons of journal work and self-care really helped me. Love it. Let's move on to the fourth aspect, which is spirit, or your spirituality. And you don't necessarily have to be religious or have a religion at all. This is about knowing that your life is bigger than just you. Your life is meaningful, connecting to purpose, connecting to meaning. So, of course, if you are religious or you're accustomed to prayer, connecting with that can bring you a lot of solace. However, if you're not, I find that journaling is a way to connect to my spiritual self, or meditation, or having some sort of rituals. Now, rituals could be anything from maybe you want to clear out your house and you want to rearrange your space, or maybe you want to, light a very safe bonfire somewhere, and maybe you want to burn a letter that you've written to somebody who hurt you. But having some sort of ritual is really important because it demarcates in your mind, this is time for a fresh start. Some people have a ritual like, I'm going to take a solo trip by myself to a place of great meaning to me, and I'm going to whisper in the hollow of a tree my vows to myself. Or I'm going to write a letter and I'm going to put it in a bottle and set it afloat in the ocean. Maybe that's not ecologically biodegradable paper. Yeah, but some sort of ritual is important. I also find speaking to old people or elders wise people who've been through that, very useful. I have, I should not say several old people, they'll be very offended, but I have people who are older than me, decades older than me, and sometimes it can really help to speak to people who are wise. And in this, I have a comment from Amelia. She says, I talk to my best friends and my husband as they understand me better than I know myself. Another part in the spirit aspect is also about feeling awe again, awe as in AWE, that sense of wonder. When we were young, there were so many things that brought us a sense of wonder, whether it was dinosaur bones or the first time we saw a giant redwood, or for Greg, what was it for you that brought you awe?
Simply looking up at the stars at night and feeling the sense of, wow, this is such a huge universe and we're just a small part of it.
Wondering if there were aliens out there. So connecting to things that brought you awe or still inspire you, whether that's wondering about the ancient mysteries like the pyramids, or whether that is watching a live concert or a beautiful choreography or whatever it is.
Creating some art, whatever it is that you can also lose yourself in.
And it helps because when we wonder, we get this awe, which brings us perspective. It makes us realize, for instance, if I'm in the mountains of Bhutan or if I'm standing in the Grand Canyon, I realize I'm so small. And my problems are even smaller in the grand scheme of things. So the invitation there is, what makes you feel small in the best possible way? I mean, what makes you have that perspective that actually this is all relative and we're all a tiny part of this wonderful existence.
Yeah, and that reminds me also of the kind of fast forwarding in time, like reflecting, hey, in 1 week's time, is this going to be such a big issue? In 1 month time, 1 year time, 10 years time, will I even remember all the challenges that I'm going through right now?
I love this comment from our community member, Girl Little House. She says that her ritual is we walk the stairs from the first floor to the top floor, one step at a time, and we look back and reflect. I once went for a retreat. I once held a retreat in Bhutan where we gave each person a sort of Zen koan. That means it's a sort of saying to reflect on while they climbed up to the top of the mountain. So with every step, they were reflecting on this question. And when they came back from the top of the mountain, we set them also another reflection prompt. Like, who do I want to be? With every step, who do I want to be? Who do I want to be? And like going for a meditative walk, step by step, contemplating the next phase of your life could also be really important.
Yeah, what do I need to let go of, or what do I want to invite into my life?
Lastly, we have the social aspect, which is so important.
Super important.
Social resilience. Much research shows that the biggest predictor of our resilience is actually social. It's how much do we have a supportive network.
Yeah, and it's a little bit paradoxical that often when we don't feel so great, we start disconnecting from our friends and from our loved ones. Perhaps we don't want to burden them. We think we're a bit of a downer to them, or that they're busy themselves in their own lives. But actually at that moment, we need it the most, and we need to actively reach out to others. Because in a way, it's also a gift to offer to them that they can support you at that moment.
So reaching out to friends is super important, like what Amelia said just now, speaking to people who know you better than you know yourself. Sometimes your friends can identify certain, sources of resilience, give you ideas. They can distract you. They can bring you out. They can get you out of your funk. I remember I had one friend who was depressed who said to me, please don't stop checking in with me. I may not respond. I may not return your message because I'm just not in a state to, but I appreciate each and every one of your messages. So don't stop checking in. If you have a friend who's in a rut, who's in a funk, it really means a lot to them. And that consistency, telling your friends, hey, I would really appreciate if you keep on checking in with me, even if I don't respond. I really need sometimes you to drag me out, even if I don't want to. So I remember this friend of mine said, I know I don't want to go out, but I want you to drag me out in 1 week's time. So that was great. In a week's time, I did contact her and I said, you remember you said that you wanted me to drag you out for a girls' lunch. And she was like, no. And I was like, you told me to do this. And she did. And we had a great time. So social resilience, super, super important. Speaking to people who know you and love you and whom you trust. And I want to end off with some community hacks as well. And these are little life hacks, which I couldn't file under any category, so I'll share them with you. In no particular order. Get a personal stylist and change up your wardrobe. Sometimes for women, it can be fun and helpful to change up our personal appearance. Cut your hair, get a great new haircut.
Reminds me of getting a personal trainer, perhaps, that pushes you to get out of bed and exercise.
Get your friends to help make you a playlist so you have all this new music to listen to. Sort out your environment or hire a home organizer. Give your love and help others. I think this is part of social and spiritual
Absolutely.
as well.
Contributing to others also helps you to shift away from being preoccupied with your own issues, to see that other people also struggle with something and you can actually help them.
One of my therapists said to me, actually, if your biggest problems are problems created by your mind, that is actually something of a luxury. And I was so affronted when he told me that. I was like, what? And he was like, well, some people, their biggest problems are problems in their external world, not their internal world. It's like political oppression, lack of, safety, being a war refugee. And if your biggest problems are the problems in your internal world, that's actually something of a luxury. And it was hard for me to hear that. But sometimes I remember those words as a kind of a wake-up call. Now, I also have other suggestions. Lock myself in the room and KTV, karaoke to my favorite songs. I love this because I think when you sing, it actually is really hard to stay depressed when you're singing. Hey?
Well, I think singing, moving, dancing, jumping around, all of that gets us out of our mind and moves us into the wisdom and the intelligence of the body as well.
I had somebody who said, think of your payday. It does pull you back into reality and gives you motivation to get back to work.
Treat yourself to something nice, whether it's just a nice cup of coffee or a small little present gift to yourself.
Yeah. So even if it's not payday, it could be, give yourself something to look forward to. Mark off something in your calendar that is something for you to look forward to this week, next week, and the week after. I love this one. Set 3 intentions for the day. It could just be getting out of bed, having a nice lunch, picking up the phone, talking to your friend, but 3 simple intentions or even just one. And when you actually create that intentionality, it allows you to feel like, yeah, I'm making progress,
Absolutely.
Baby steps.
Yeah, and then maybe at the end of the day reflecting, hey, today I did that one thing and that for that moment felt maybe good or maybe at least not as bad as you would on the darkest moment of that day.
So I hope within all of these tips and advice, I hope there's something or some things that resonate with you. Maybe not every one of them will be your cup of tea.
Yeah, try them out.
But, pick something that works for you. And I also want to show appreciation for our community who have just been so supportive and so encouraging. This, I feel, is like a virtual, like a safe space for us to really help each other and find this community in Asia where, we're able to share our life experiences and know that we are not alone. That's why I named the podcast Comfort and Growth. We're getting so much comfort from each other and we are growing together.
Yeah, it's just so beautiful to see those messages of support, whatever it is, like, hey, I can relate to this, or you're not alone, or, I hear what you're going through. That's really beautiful.
So thanks so much for joining us on this week's episode. And if you have any other suggestions, please write to me. And don't forget to leave a rating. If you are listening to us on wherever you are, Spotify or so, it really helps us if you leave us a rating if you enjoyed this podcast in the early days. Thanks so much, everyone. And I'll see you next week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good luck with it all.